The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has announced the commencement of operations at the 125,000 barrel per day Warri Refining and Petrochemical Company in Delta State. NNPCL Group CEO Mele Kyari disclosed this during a tour of the facility on Monday, alongside the chief executive of the mainstream and downstream petroleum regulatory authority, that's Farouk Ahmed. Kyari stated that while repairs on the refinery are not yet fully completed, operations have started. He emphasized the significance of showcasing progress to Nigerians, saying, in his words, "This plant is running. Many think these things are not real. We want you to see that this is real." End of quote. Now, the Warri refinery, commissioned in 1978, produces polypropylene and carbon black and supplies southern and southwestern markets. Its mechanical completion was initially projected to first quarter of 2024. This development follows the recent launch of operations at the Port Harcourt refinery, marking a renewed focus on Nigeria's refining capacity. Let's also tell you that as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's tax reforms stir nationwide debate, Segun Shomi, former spokesperson to the ex-presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, has advised Northerners to approach the issues strategically. The People's Democratic Party's chieftain stressed that the reforms are not targeted at any specific region, and urged the North to adopt constructive engagement with the administration. Shomi issued a caution during a media interaction at the Alternative, a pan-opposition movement he founded in Abeokuta, Ogun State, highlighting the need for balanced discourse. Shomi warned that inflammatory opinions could threaten the country's unity and safety.
Even engaging the Bola Tinubu government intelligently, with due respect to them, the things they want to hang themselves on are the most irrelevant things. If you do not take care of the fundamental of your subnational economy, you do not take care of the fundamentals of your nano economy, which is your family structures, government policies can seem a little bit more difficult to contend with. Nobody is doing the Yorubas a favor as a collective because of Bola Tinubu's government policies. The truth of the matter is that we have created, a nation has been created, and that nation is a great nation, and it is our duty to preserve the sanity, the inclusivity, the balance, and the sense of camaraderie and unity of this nation. You should dismantle that economic team that is too pro-Yoruba as a way of letting people know that he is not doing it because he wants to favor his tribe. After all, their policies have not favored us differently from how it has favored or impacted us.
However, on the show tonight, we'll take a deep dive into 2024 in retrospect and the political issues that shaped Nigeria this year. Joining me on the program, Najeeb Suleiman Babalikita is a policy consultant, and also Dr. Peter Piper, a civil society activist and public affairs analyst, as they discuss the major political events and their impact on Nigeria's future. Welcome. I am Dakbo Adigboyi. Let's get some answers. Nigeria's 2024 political landscape was marked by significant developments. Now, the country witnessed a tough year for incumbents, with many facing significant challenges and losses in elections. This was largely driven by economic challenges, including rising prices and inflation, which led to widespread frustration amongst many Nigerians. Now, one of the major trends was the push for inclusive practices in politics. Efforts were made to increase the participation of underrepresented groups, such as women, youths, and persons with disabilities. in the political process. However, despite these efforts, the country still struggles with tribalism, which remains a thorny concern in Nigerian politics. The 2024 elections was also significant, with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration facing protest and criticism, from various groups. Despite these challenges, the administration has made efforts to promote economic growth and development. Overall, Nigeria's 2024 political landscape was complex and multifaceted, with both positive and negative developments. As the country looks to the future, it is clear that addressing these challenges, remains critical ahead of next year. Well, joining me on the program, just like I introduced earlier, are the two gentlemen. Dr. Peter Piper is a civil society activist and public affairs analyst, and also Najeeb Suleiman Babalikita is also a policy consultant. Gentlemen, thank you for your time on the program. Let me start off with you, Dr. Peter Piper. Looking at 2024 and all that has happened in retrospect, how would you say this year has fared so far? Before we now pick it, piecemeal, say maybe the political aspect and then the economy. But for you, 2024, how significant?
Well, thanks for having me. Well, 2024 is not only significant, it's been really dramatic. We have seen the manifestation of a prophecy that was made by one of the greatest prophets the human race have ever seen. I'm talking about a prophet named, you will get to know the name of the prophet. The prophet said in 2023, and we didn't understand the significance of this prophetic utterance. And this prophet said, and he prophesied that there will be a town hall different. Now, we know the meaning of a town hall, but we didn't know the difference. And maybe we weren't really paying attention to this prophet. And he said this town hall will be different from Bagablue. We never knew what that word meant in the dictionary. Boogabla, and then he said Bulaba. Well, you know it's the end of the year, so I'm just being comical. So in 2023, we saw the Bagablue. 2024, we saw the Boogabla, and now we're about to witness the Bulaba. So that's just my own humorous way of saying that it was significant, but I think we need to analyze the details. We've seen the Bagablue, we've seen the Boogabla, and now we are going to have.
And of course, that would definitely,
whatever that means in prophetic terms.
That would definitely take me to asking you the details of that. I believe that you are making reference to that viral video during the campaigns. I'm sure Nigerians know exactly what you're talking about. But let's bring it right now, to specifics. Let's look at the political landscape. We know that this year, largely was a reflection of last year's general elections, where there were a lot of tribunals, there were a lot of court cases. Some states had, the off-cycle elections this year, states like Edo State, Ondo State, and we saw a lot of political happenings across the political landscape. For many, they might say, some of those things that happen, maybe even during the elections, for instance, in some of this, the off-cycle election states, they were not surprised. But for some, they will say it set a new precedence. For you, how would you describe, the political experience this year so far for you?
Well, I think what we are doing right now is a political experiment. We are still experimenting with the idea of democracy. First, Nigerians were experiencing military rule, and from military rule, we have successfully transited into civilian rule. And so far, we're beginning to make experiments with democracy. Because democracy, from the definition we were told in school, except that definition has changed, was supposed to be a government for the people, of the people, for the people, and by the people. So we are waiting for that time when the government will really be of the people. Because right now the people are not enjoying whatever dividends. We are waiting for a time when the government will be for the people, when the policies will be in the favor of the people. That time still hasn't come, and we are certainly waiting for the time when the government will be by the people, which means a government that was actually, in truth and in reality, a reflection of the wishes of the majority of the people. That certainly hasn't happened at the moment.
I'm sorry, I might just need to cut in. You said the government, maybe you might just want to, be specific. So far, you said the policies are not for the people. The government itself is not even by the people. But
it's not of the people and not by the people.
Okay, I mean, are you talking about which of the governments specifically? Is it at the federal level or state level?
I'm talking about everything in totality. In totality, from the local government. Look at the local government elections everywhere. What happened? As long as it's a local government election, you don't even want to participate in it if you are, a politician that doesn't belong to the ruling party. So in the local government elections we've seen in Nigeria, if you were the state governor, you decide who will be the local government chair.
But there was a twist to that this year. We saw, of course, the current administration push for local government autonomy, and the Supreme Court actually did, put that into law. And for the first time in a long time, in many places across Nigeria, there was the conduct of local government elections, not selection or the setup of caretaker committee. For many political pundits, they would say this is a major push of the needle. For the first time, they are seeing these elections happen.
Let us separate the two things. Let us separate the local government elections and the beautiful decision, that has been taken. If I should give one plus to this government, it is in granting autonomy to the local governments in Nigeria. So we are happy about the autonomy. I'm not talking about the autonomy granted to the local government. I'm talking about the process of selecting who becomes a local government chairman. And if you're going to be sincere, here we are analyzing everything. If you're going to be sincere, and if we're going to say democracy should be of the people, for the people, and by the people. Now, those in office, were they actually selected by the people? Is INEC actually a neutral player in the selection or in the election of those who will get into office? Every Nigerian can tell you the answer to this question, except we just want to deceive ourselves here. So we need to separate the policy. There's been a beautiful policy, and I laud this government for that policy, the autonomy granted to the local government areas so they can access their funds directly from the federal government. Now, we're going to talk about that a lot more in detail, but as you asked me to give my impression on democracy,
all right.
I've told you that we have transited from military to civil rule, and now we are in the experimental stages of transiting from civil rule to democracy. Let's hope we get there.
All right.
INEC permits us to do that.
Let me bring in Najeeb Suleiman Babalikita into the conversation as a policy consultant. Najeeb, it's great to have you on the program. I would like to believe that you've had quite a number of things Dr. Piper said, but one thing that sort of stuck out is the fact that he said a lot of the policy initiatives and even the government structure isn't really a reflection of the desire of the people. Do you also share that?
That as well, because the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu sold the Renewed Hope Manifesto to Nigerians, and he won the election, but not with a landslide. He won the election with the most insignificant margin probably in Nigeria's electoral history. And then all of a sudden, we begin to see the implementation of IMF policies, which has plunged the country into some catastrophic economic dilemma. And I can tell you for free that Nigerians are better off where they were in 2023 during Buhari's administration than where they are right now, because of the policies that have been implemented by the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, And all in all, we expected that the president, being a Democrat, was going to do things differently, because if you look at the country's development from 1960, when we had independence, the First Republic, the Balewa government came in. Balewa himself was not necessarily going to be the prime minister. He was actually given the opportunity by the late Sardauna, who was the leader of the Northern People's Congress. In the Second Republic, Alhaji Shehu Shagari contested the senatorial primaries, which he lost, and then suddenly, after there were hiccups within the National Party of Nigeria between Alhaji Ibrahim Waziri, who wanted to be the presidential candidate of the party and at the same time wanted to be the flag bearer of the party. Then he moved to the GNPP, which he created. Then Shagari became the presidential candidate of the NPN and he became president. Subsequently, we have seen back and forth leaders who did not, prime themselves for positions, but got those positions on a platter of gold. But President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has consistently shown, interest to be president of Nigeria, and he came in. We expected things to be different because in 1998, ahead of the People's Democratic Party's convention in Jos, the main issue within the G32 that metamorphosed to the PDP was the fact that all and sundry should come together and build a political party that will carry everyone along. But the fact is that a lot of people argue that there shouldn't be military people with military background should be exempted in the political process. That is why the Alliance of Democracy didn't join, the coalition that gave birth to the PDP. And we saw how then the Alliance for Democracy became, in opposition. It started the opposition. PDP came into power, because the Alliance of Democracy completely primed themselves as a party of Democrats, as a party that didn't have any military.
So are you saying that the current administration, in delivery of its promise to the people, didn't perform up to par? Are you saying it betrayed the trust of Nigerians?
I wouldn't use the word betrayal, but I can tell you for certain that they fall short of the expectations of Nigerians, because Nigerians expected things to be handled differently. Today, all over the world, any country that cannot be able to improve the standard of living of our own citizenry cannot be taken seriously. Today in Nigeria, the standard of living of many Nigerians, have fallen. Health care, child mortality, out of school children is on the increase. So all in all, I cannot tell you categorically which area this administration has made better for Nigerians.
All right.
That is why the issue of the tax reform bill now is being viewed with so much skepticism.
All right. At this point, of course, we'll go on our first break, and when we return, we'll be looking at the issue of protest and civil rights, which we saw happen a lot, this year. We remember the N-Band governors' protest that happened, and what followed Afterwards, we'll also be looking at the role of the judiciary. But let's go on a quick break first. When we return, the show definitely will continue. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Of course, this is still News Central TV, and it's Politics HQ. I still have my guests with me, and we're looking at the political, not just the political landscape, but 2024 in retrospect. Those significant events that impacted, our lives, across the year. I still have my guest with me, Dr. Peter Piper, as a civil society activist and public affairs analyst, and also Najeeb Suleiman Babalikita is a policy consultant. Both men are joining me virtually. Thank you for staying with me. Now, let me come back to you, Dr. Piper. We saw, the EdBad governance protest that, did happen this year, the fallout or the follow-up that happened also, which involved the arrest of some activists and even, minors, where they were charged with treason. And of course, this elicited a lot of public outcry. And it also brought to the fore the issue of civil rights and even human rights abuse. And many criticized the handling of these issues by the government. I'd like your take on these events, as it happened during the year.
Well, thank you very much once again for having me. I'm sure you're talking to civil society activists.
Yes, very much.
So when a country begins to crack down on opposition voices, when a country becomes intolerant to any dissenting voice, when a country becomes so paranoid, against anyone to the actions of the party, that tells you quite clearly that there is a descent into autocracy. Principles of democracy, the basic fundamental principles of human rights, which ties all of us together, is being threatened. When people came out to protest, they were protesting against the system, not against the individual. So sometimes people need to understand no problem with the personality of the man called Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whose face you're showing right now on the screen. He is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But I will have a problem if, as a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I am not able to criticize the policies of the government. I am not able to say certain decisions that have been taken that are not okay with me. When you have your way as the government and you refuse to let me have my say, then that is the problem. You already had your way, and now we can't have our say. Are we in prison? When you promised us a renewed hope, a hope means an expectation for the future. So if I have an expectation for the future, and I realize that my expectations and my hope and my goals are not being met, and I find myself frustrated, the only way I can express this anger in a civil way, in a legal way, is through protests. So the moment people can no longer protest, so what are you asking them to do? Are you asking for war? Are you asking for the people to pick up arms and fight? Because they are saying that we are feeling the pain of your policy. The government is not going the way we need it to go. We need to end a system that is not working perfectly. So what do you expect the government to do at that time is to call the people together and dialogue with them and speak with them. But what happened was a crackdown. I can tell you as a civil rights activist and a civil society activist that we were hunted like animals. People were being picked up in their bedrooms in Abuja, dragged on the floor, thrown into vehicles and taken, into custody. And most of these people suffered, untold hardship. And we saw the crescendo of all of this when we saw toddlers, infants, babies being charged to court for treason. So it has become treasonable offense to protest in Nigeria. And let's not forget that the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is an activist. He's an activist. We still remember the days of Nadeko. This man who is the president today is an activist. That is why, as an activist, I advise this to everyone. To survive this administration, we must transcend from activism to pragmatism.
What does that entail?
We must transcend from activism to pragmatism. That means taking practical actions. Because now you've been told you can no longer protest, which is activism. You can no longer protest, which is activism. So right now, all activists are learning to become pragmatists. So we are transcending from activism to pragmatism. And when that time comes, they will see the difference between activism and pragmatism. They shut down the activists, they shut down the protests, they arrested most of the activists, they arrested children. I don't even want to call them children, I call them babies. I saw little children in court that have been kept hungry for days, weeks, and months. If they were not exposed to the court, in the courtroom, we never would have known that such would have taken place. So we have put an end to activism.
All right.
No more activism. What we're doing now, the next phase of it is going to be pragmatism.
All right, Dr. Piper, let me leave you for a moment and bring in Najeeb Suleiman, Babalikita. Your take on the issue of the protests, that happened this year, particularly as it affects civil rights, and the talk about, if at all, by some political pundits, state capture. What do you make of this?
It's very sad that just what Dr. Piper said, like the president has been an activist, you remember, right from the Nadeko days, and we find ourselves in a situation where the president is clamping down, on, civil rights, human rights activists in the country. I can't begin to tell you how bad I feel and what is happening in the country because we're not supposed to be here. But this has been, the trend of a culture of insensitivity.
Najeeb, it appears we are having a bit of audio issues with you. We are unable to hear you well. Okay, I understand that maybe you can continue speaking. Okay, I'm made to understand that your audio is muted, so maybe you might just want to look into that, and I'll come back to Dr. Piper on this one. The issue of state capture, which some political pundits and observers are beginning to talk about now, saying that it appears, you used the word where activists, for instance, there seems to be some sort of clamp down on activists and, their activities too. But there's also the talk of state capture. Do you see that, happening in 2024?
Your state has already been captured. I'm going to advise Nigerians to develop a reading culture. There is a book titled The Nigerian Dream, written by one of my very good friends, Dr. Moses Paul. And that book has a whole chapter titled State Capture. If you can lay your hand on that book titled The Nigerian Dream, I will need you to go to that chapter titled State Capture so you can read what state capture really is. State capture is a situation where a few strong people, a few henchmen gather together and conspire amongst themselves to use all the facilities that they have and the experience they have had, and even using poverty as a weapon against the people to capture the people. And that is the situation you have. There is no need for euphemism. There is no need to sugarcoat it. The Nigerian state has been captured by a few people. And we are right now, the country is under the stranglehold, suffering under the strangulation of these few people who have captured the state. This is why the civil society organizations and activists and pressure groups are coming together and saying, we need to have a voice. If you already have your way, you have captured the state, let us at least have our say. So in the issue of state capture, I can tell you 100% your state has been captured. Every state, I'm not talking about just the Nigerian state, down to the state, we have 36 states in Nigeria. Now we've just been told it is 37 because we used to think that the federal capital territory where I live here was not a state, but from the last presidential election from the Supreme Court, now we understand we need to start teaching the students in school that Nigeria has 37 states, not 36 states, but we're going to talk about that. So in each of the states, the moment you become the governor, as long as you're a state governor, legally, you have captured your state. You are the one now to fix local government chairman in all of the states so you can have 100% capture of your state. So yes, it is true. Nigeria is under state capture by a few powerful strong men who will not even let people speak. And when the activists begin to speak out, they clamp them down, they throw them in prison, they pauperize them in every way possible. So you don't have a free state. We are living in a captured state, both federally, state-wise, and even in the local government.
All right.
Nigerians are in state captivity. Thank you.
All right. Let me bring in Najeeb Suleiman back into the conversation. Now, my question to you would be to look at the role of the judiciary and security forces. Throughout the year, we've seen pivotal events that happened where they came to the fore. We've seen cases where elections were eventually decided, the eventual outcome by the judiciary playing a key role in this. We've seen cases also where security forces, sort of displayed, their substance. We saw their activities across protests and even, some key issues that happened, in the course of the year. So my question to you is this: how would you rate the role of Nigerian judiciary and the security forces, particularly the police?
Okay, let me first start talking about judiciary. Remember the valedictory session of the 9th National Assembly, the remarks made by Justice Chuka, where he declared justice.
I think we still have a bit of audio issues with Najeeb. Najeeb, we, of course, are not hearing you properly, so I might just need to go back to Dr. Piper. And I'll throw the same question to you, the role of the judiciary and the security forces, particularly the police. How would you say they're fared in 2024?
Now you're going to bring tears down my eyes. Now you're really, really going to make me cry now for my beloved country. Now, talking about the judiciary, I think when we were in secondary school, they taught us in government that we have three branches of the government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. What we are witnessing in Nigeria today is an unholy merger of these three. We are beginning to see now in Nigeria that the judiciary is just an arm of the executive. Because with the way judicial pronouncement was made throughout the
course of the year.
I'm searching for the right word because I know I'm on air, so I have to be very careful about, the words that I use. But we all saw the jamboree that took place in the law courts. We saw how hopeful Nigerians were, especially those of us who reside here in Abuja, and we felt that 25%, of votes in Abuja, and then we saw all of that, and then we saw someone who dared to write a book. The sins that this young man committed was he was literate enough to write a book, and he titled the book the Nigerian Criminal Justice System. I don't know if that's the title of the book. And he tried to express his opinion, his experience, being a lawyer, being in that field. And we all saw what they did to the gentleman. They haunted him like an animal, treated him like a, like a criminal, and it took the intervention of well-meaning citizens of the country and the outcry of everyone for this man to regain his freedom, just because he dared to say and question. He dared to question the criminal justice system in Nigeria. So you can see what just happened to someone who questioned the criminal justice system in Nigeria, and now you're making me question the same criminal justice system in the country. My brother, even a kindergarten child knows that when you come to this country, it operates differently. And now talking about the police, just go home and ask your child, what is the role of the policeman in Nigeria? And he will tell you the duty of a policeman in Nigeria is to stand on the road, stop vehicles, and demand money from the passengers and the drivers. That is the duty of the Nigerian policeman. So they have lost respect for even children. They have lost the respect of their own citizens. So we live in a system where you can't go to court. In fact, the criminal is the one telling you, if you don't like this, go to court. So when someone tells you, go to court in Nigeria, he's telling you, there is nothing you can do to me. But if you were in the UK or in the US or in any other part of the developed world, and someone says, I'll take you to court, you begin to panic. You begin to think, could I have violated any part of the law? Because you know the man is not going to be able to twist the judicial system as easily as we do it here in Nigeria.
I mean, are you saying that the judiciary as sort of, from all you've said, it appears, are you suggesting that the judiciary has stopped being the last hope of the common man?
Last hope? The common man has no hope. The judiciary can't even be a hope. You want me to call a spade and not an agricultural instrument. What I am saying to you right here in plain English is that the judiciary is culpable. In fact, let me use the word corrupt. The judiciary is corrupt. And you can't even hide their corruption in a book. You put it in a book, you're in trouble. You say it on radio, you're in trouble. You say it on television, you're in trouble. You know, in those days when we were growing up, one of the most noble professions you can think about was the legal profession. You ask every child, what do you want to be? I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor. I want to be... Go now and ask this Gen Z population how many of them want to be lawyers, and they tell you, no, I want to be an influencer, a social media influencer. I want to be like, they mention every other thing. They're not going to mention lawyers. They're not going to mention judges, because we are watching this happening before our very eyes. The destruction of the judicial system. You know, we're watching this on play. It's unfolding before our eyes that you can go to court, even as an innocent man, and you will be proven guilty even when you're innocent. So the laws now depends on how the judiciary will want to interpret this. That's why I keep saying they can have their way, but please let us at least have our say.
All right. Of course, I'll come back to you, Dr. Piper. You said quite a number of things, but let's go on another break. When we return, we'll x-ray the role of INEC, because some states did have off-cycle elections, and INEC did, of course, play a critical role in all of that. Did it use these elections to further boost the hope in Nigeria's electoral system, or was it dashed? Well, we'll talk about this when we return after the break. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Of course, this is still Politics HQ on New Central Television, and we're looking at 2024 in retrospect. Some of the key happenings, in the course of the year. It's just about 2 days away before we say Happy New Year 2025. I still have my guest with me, Dr. Peter Piper is a civil society activist and public affairs analyst, and Mr. Najeeb Suleiman Babalikita is a policy consultant. Of course, right now, I still have Dr. Piper. We are still trying to connect with Najeeb. But before I went on that break, I said I was going to ask you on the role of, INEC, particularly in the conduct of the off-cycle elections we saw across states. We know that 2023 elections still remains contentious to many Nigerians, even though INEC has tried several times to sort of clear the air to say that, look, it was free, it was fair, but Nigerians still seem to have an opinion. Did INEC use the off-cycle elections in any way to sort of boost their public image, Dr. Piper?
Well, you notice I was laughing when you were talking about INEC. I don't know why names seem to follow people. INEC. I don't know whether it is the name, or whether it is the I in it and the neck, attached to the I, that's making them not understand that a neck, is supposed to have a head on top of it. So when INEC conducts elections, please don't take my word for it. Can we just go out sometimes into the streets and make a random, interview with Nigerians and sample their opinions and ask how many of them who voted in 2023 trust INEC? In fact, we are of the opinion right now that INEC, as it is presently constituted, is an arm of the ruling party. Independent National Electoral Commission. That's what you call it. That's what gives you the acronym INEC. How independent is it? When the president of the country is the one who appoints the chairman of INEC. And members of INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission, are card-carrying members of the ruling party. In fact, let me tell you this.
I'm sorry, do you have proof of that?
Oh, this is a country that talks about proof. If you have proof of anything, where do you go to? You go to the courts, right? So we just talked about the justice system. You don't have a justice system, and you're saying you go to court. Listen, the INEC chairman, there was a time when we showed everyone on TV the cap he was wearing. We knew this APC cap that was made by the APC government, the political party, which was distributed to their members. You know, the symbol of the APC is a broom. Well, let's not talk about the symbolism of the broom in African traditional religion or even in Western cultures. We all know it is witches that actually fly on broom, but I'm not going to talk about the significance of broom. But that broom was on that cap. And we know that that cap is a symbolism of the APC, the ruling party. Just like we know that our dear President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has a cap that has a symbol of his authority. We know when you wear that cap, we know you are BAT, Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Dr. Piper, I'm afraid
the INEC chairman was seen several times with the cap. And we kept on questioning, Oga, this cap is an APC cap now. Oga, you are supposed to be independent. So how come you're wearing the cap of a political party? There was also a time when members of the INEC, it went viral on social media, showing them when they were members of the APC with the APC t-shirts and everything. All of that was posted on social media. So to say that you need to be a member of the ruling party to be appointed as a chairman of INEC is just to state the truth that everybody knows.
All right.
So there is no saying about this. Who appoints the chairman of INEC?
Dr. Piper, I'm afraid we really need to go, but thank you so much. I would like to see if we can still connect with Najeeb Suleiman for, 30 seconds, his final thoughts, particularly just a straight question to you. In 30 seconds, did the current administration get anything right in 2024?
Women autonomy, has been something that everyone is applauding. But we must not forget that the process in which we elect political leaders in the country is being marred by a lot of, fraudulent, systemic issues, which I continue to call irregularities. The digitalization of election in Nigeria began with the card reader, the introduction of the card reader in 2015, brought the first opposition party to power in Nigeria. And subsequently, in 2023, we saw the introduction of the bimodal voter accreditation system. But the inability of the Electoral Act to clearly spell out whether INEC can transmit or not transmit results left that discretion to INEC, and that has caused significant mayhem in the elections. And the off-cycle election also, you could see, especially that of Ido, was nothing to write home about. So, of course, if our electoral processes are not clearly, carried out, clear-cut processes that match, the expectations of Nigerians, will continue to have significant problems. But by and large, Nigerians are taken for a ride. We talked about the issue of policing and judiciary. My earlier assessment of the judiciary was, of course, the remarks made by Justice Kulkatua in the valedictory session of the 9th National Assembly, where he pointed accusing fingers, on the judiciary itself, and said that they actually did favors to elect politicians in the country, and up till now, not much have been done. And remember, Justice Deti...
I'm afraid, I'm sorry, but we really need to go. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I wish we had so much time. Hopefully, maybe would bring you back to discuss more issues on this matter. But thank you so much, Dr. Peter Piper, civil society activist and public affairs analyst, and also Najeeb Suleiman, Babalikita, policy consultant. Gentlemen, I'm deeply grateful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, and Happy New Year in advance. Well, that's the beat we can take on today's episode. In case you missed out, you can actually catch up on our YouTube platform. That's News Central TV. You can also follow us across social media with the same handle. It's on your screen there. At some point later tonight, we will have a repeat broadcast. You can also want to look out for that. You can follow me personally at Dakpo at Digboyi. Until I come your way tomorrow, good night.